is my official notice of opposition to the bridge project. It has nothing to do with bridge. I absolutely believe that that development should be, that site should be developed. However, I'm opposed to it being developed in this manner because over the past 2 years, I've seen, quite frankly, how the city has operated, the position that they've taken, the direction that they've taken in making sure that this particular development moves forward. They've been aware of it, the illegal operations that have occurred, the deals that were made 2 years ago over this, subsequent deals over a year and a half ago to provide easements from the West End Water to bridge development. Actually, they didn't go to bridge development. They went specifically to Bon Giovanni. And then subsequent to that, my own personal observations of the illegal operations that have been occurring on Airport Drive and the Bon Giovanni site. And what breaks my heart is I can tell everybody here who's sitting here and watching, I absolutely can prove by documentation, video, and photographs that the city was aware of illegal operations, the importing of dirt onto that site, which did not discontinue until San Bernardino County Environmental Health got involved. Yet there's an MND that we're supposed to just accept and move on when there's all these new projects going on the west end of the city. Okay? Numerous projects. Industrial buildings being built. Educate yourself. New residential complexes. Not against bridge development. Please ensure that you request an EIR on this. Thank you.
My name is Mark Walters. I'm a retired police officer with 25 years experience. 7 of these years were devoted specifically to traffic safety. I'm a member of the City of Upland's Traffic and Safety Committee and director of the Upland Coalition of Concerned Citizens and a resident of Upland for the last 5 years. A cost-benefit analysis, CBA, is the process used to measure the benefits of a decision minus the costs associated with this decision. I've been doing some brief calculations to help me understand this development and associated CBAs. Bridge Development states this: unknown companies' vehicles, which include semi-trucks, vans, and cars, will only be using Baseline Road, Benson Avenue, Foothill Boulevard, and Central Avenue to access their facility. Using my calculations, it has been determined that these 4 roadways are 24,051 feet long, or in other words, 4.55 miles long. Using the national average, it costs $1.25 million per mile to repave a roadway. To repave this designated roadway that they're going to be using on a one-time only event, it will cost the City of Upland $5,687,500. Also, using national averages on a heavily traveled roadway, you can expect the need to repave these roadways every 10 to 15 years. Being a 50-year lease and using the national average, the City of Upland will spend $22,750,000 out of Upland's general fund to maintain these designated roadways. Please keep in mind this does not include inflationary costs, nor does it include lane striping, bots, dots, or intersection sensors. Since our city is already broke, we will obviously need to cut costs. Are we going to cut our city staff? Are we going to cut our police staff? Are we going to quit trimming trees? Are we going to shut down the library? Are we going to close our parks down? Or will we have to do all of the above? Based on the above cost-benefit analysis, this project will cost the City of Upland way more than the benefit, and I recommend you vote no to this potentially city bankrupting project. Thank you.
If you look at the history, the news, Amazon has a very bad reputation. This is why their name is not disclosed in this plan and many other plans that you see in the Inland Empire. So with that, the reason why is because they pay poverty wages. Okay, they pour millions of dollars in cities to influence policy decisions, and I'm just very concerned that this would set a very dangerous precedence with this company, and it's not a very popular company. But I'm here to announce that we are having a grassroots community workshop on Saturday. And the reason why is because, again, just 2 months after I spoke, a recent report came out from the Economic Roundtable. It's a scathing report, fact-based, highly researched report, very comprehensive, that talks about the actual economic impact as a result of Amazon's footprint in our community, especially in the Inland Empire. And it's very important that we educate the community. Just to give you a little bit of a preview, Amazon is actually benefiting from public subsidies. We, the taxpayers, are subsidizing their employees. Now, keep in mind, this is a $900 billion company, and they are really taking full advantage of the public subsidies. And this is why they are monopolizing and really just dominating the e-commerce. So it's very important that we educate our community. And in this slide here, we're going to have an expert, the person who was part of this study, to talk about the actual impact. Again, this is a social impact. And then we're going to have someone talk about the environmental impact and be able to quantify what is the implication for Upland. And so we need to be
My name is Roger Stevenson. I'm here to make some specific comments related to the draft initial study in MND. In terms of my background, I'm a civil engineer. My career has been based on large-scale public works projects. And before I forget, I will be submitting these and other comments in writing with discussion, because 3 minutes is not enough time for an engineer to get into technical stuff. Okay, so first thing, the project description. The building is smaller now, almost a third smaller, but the activity level hasn't decreased. There will be highly active loading areas on either side, the north and south side. Those areas should be included within the overall square footage of the building when you're figuring things like parking and employee and other area-related stuff. So the square footage should really be up around 300,000 or more square feet. A careful reading of the Upland General Plan, looking at the zoning for the proposed site. You read that, it says limited warehousing. That's how that sentence works out. Down on the south side of Foothill, for the College Heights area, it specifically says warehousing and distribution. Okay, so the general plan is based on a distinction between limited warehousing and warehousing and distribution, and on that basis, the proposed site doesn't meet the general plan. And that finding A that indicates that it's compatible, well, it might be compatible, but that does not mean it meets the zoning requirement. In terms of the traffic impact analysis, which is a big element of the initial study, the existing traffic impact analysis did not adequately represent the traffic that would result from this particular facility. And that's both total trips and, more importantly, the hourly distribution of travel to and from the facility. The Institute of Transportation Engineers land use classification that they used was developed based on facilities that are different in character than what is being proposed here as a van delivery center. So therefore, the data that they used isn't appropriate, and so therefore the results of the transportation analysis, including any recommended road improvements or whatever, aren't valid. And then the last thing, I want to make a comment on the retail analysis memorandum. Well, that's got nothing to do with anything. That site isn't zoned that way, and I think it was put in there as a diversion from doing what is needed, which is look at the details of the project.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Leland Marks, and I'm basically here today because I live on 13th Street, and I've seen the traffic congestion. I don't have any real technical situation set up because I just heard about this meeting yesterday. But I came here mainly to talk about, I've been here since 1978. I've been here and seen what's happened to the city over 40 years. And the street itself, when the police station was put in 25 or so years ago, the fire department, the county workers, the impact of that, the school on 13th Street, the amount of traffic. I live on 13th Street, and I can't even get out of my driveway most of the time, or I get ran over. Now, I don't know what, a lot of these people have come up with very good scenarios and what's going on for the impact and so forth, but basically I came up here to speak about the people who have to live with this traffic. It's horrendous. That's why the 210 freeway was put in. I was here long before the 210 freeway. I was here when 16th Street was the end. Now you got Foothill getting as bad as it ever has been. And with all the impact of Amazon building this facility and the impact of the traffic, just for what they're going to do, not counting what we already have. We have a tremendous amount of traffic. And you come down Foothill Boulevard in the evening and you're back down to San Antone waiting to get to Euclid just to get across the street. What's this going to be like when we have this, and how the people who have to live here are impacted? Think about the persons and the people who live here and what they have to put up with. I mean, it is not enjoyable. It is not the city of Gracious living like it used to be, when you have to fight and put up with this. And now we got Amazon, who's going to bring in many people. I understand it's a 50-acre warehouse. The impact of all their cars, the people going to work there, the people going home. It ain't just going to be Benson Avenue and over to Foothill into 210. It will be all the area. So there's a lot of people here that I know that live in the area that are here to listen because of the impact of the traffic. It is horrendous.
So I have the actual HRA here for the mayor, so I can present it to you that HRA failed. As a result, the HRA indicates that some people would develop cancer, and that does not include health risk assessment for asthma or other illnesses. This is just cancer. I've been talking to head of pediatric oncology at Kaiser, who is right now present here, and he also indicated that the percentage of the children and minors that are going to pediatric oncology at Kaiser are much higher in the area that they have distribution centers because of the trucks. So it's black and white in front of you. And for the sake of the children of the facility, of the Upland, and also the elderly who are more susceptible for illnesses, I recommend no on this project for this area.
Good evening. Yes, I'm following with Mr. Behchat's comments. Since I heard about this proposal, I have been looking at the online newspapers, whatever I can get my hands on. And these two articles, one is October 27, the other one is November 1st, LA Times. And this one says, effort to limit warehouses seen as falling short. The other one, it says, big warehouses, projects right next to homes. The article talks about, even though assuming 1,000 feet away, it's still the impact of the pollution on individual, especially the children. I'm not going to take much of your time, but I'm going to read only one paragraph over here. It says, experts have long warned about elevated asthma and cancer risk near warehouses, distribution centers, and other freight hubs because of the pollution emitted by trucks. Physicians have even labeled these places diesel death zone. So I leave it to you guys. You make that decision for these people, their children, their grandchildren.
I live on 13th Street. right between San Antonio and Mountain. So this is new for me, speaking in front of the council, and it's really to share some concerns I have. I have a son that walks those streets to school every day. So if you will, I'm in the impact zone, right? There's 3 schools within 1 square mile of this project. You know, I know there's committed traffic patterns that they say they'll be dedicated to. I find that highly realistic because these are humans driving these trucks and vans. Humans that need to stop at the bank, need to stop at the drugstore. So I would just implore you, I don't know if you still have school-age children, perhaps grandchildren in some cases. If you're living in these neighborhoods, if your children are walking these streets, if you're trying to sleep at night with trucks zooming by for that matter, you know, I'd implore you to really consider supporting this project. I don't have some of the tremendous stats or economics that others present, but I would start there, right? This is why we chose to raise our families in Upland. And, you know, we also have a police department right down the street that's going to be trying to get emergency response on those very same streets to support our residents. So for all those reasons, I question the logic in this. It seems like short-term gain, you know, for a lot of things that long-term we're going to pay for, and the community is certainly going to pay for. So, you know, in the past few years, I've just had to worry about a plane crashing into my house. I certainly don't want to have to worry about my son getting to and from school safely. So thank you very much.
My name is Eric Nilsson. I seem to be the third Eric to speak. I don't know what's going on there. I'm professor and department chair of the Department of Economics at Cal State San Bernardino. And thank you. I took a close look at the air quality assessment and a close look at the greenhouse gas emissions assessment. And frankly, I didn't like what I saw. To not mince words, the studies are so poorly done, they need to be set aside as inadequate. And there needs to be a full-scale environmental impact study performed. Let me tell you some of the problems. There are mathematical errors in some of the tables. The tables refer to appendices that do not have material that's supposed to support the material in the tables. So someone revised these reports and failed to actually make things synchronized. So it's really pretty shoddy work. Now, as one example of questionable assumptions that are included in the air quality assessment and the greenhouse gas assessment, built into the model that the consultants generated was the assumption that when a vehicle leaves the warehouse to deliver something, the average number of miles they go is going to be 6.9 miles. 6.9 miles for an Amazon delivery. It takes that long to get to Laverne. But then once the truck gets to Laverne, it drives around for a couple hours, delivering packages, racking up maybe 60 or miles more above the 6.9. Now, the implication of that, and that's just one error out of many, or one questionable assumption out of many, is that the reports, these air quality assessment reports and the greenhouse gas assessment reports, what they do is they grossly underestimate the number of miles that will be driven by vehicles associated with the warehouse. And by grossly underestimating the amount of miles that will be driven by those vehicles, they grossly underestimate the greenhouse gas emissions and other sort of noxious fumes that will be generated by those vehicles. Now, I took it upon myself to reproduce both those reports and created my own alternative report, which you can get from here, right here if you'd like to get it.
I think this definitely needs an environmental impact report. Just looking over the biological section, the habitat assessment. People need to know that what they're going to be losing. I'm a wildlife biologist. We should know what we're going to be losing biodiversity-wise. We're going to be losing the cottontails, the squirrels, the habitat there for raptors to come and forage. We're going to be losing the plant diversity there. There was only one day that the biologist went out there and looked at the plants. It's not enough time to do adequate surveys for the area for birds. And also it was done during August of 29th of 2019. There's a lot of plants. That's the time of the year when native plants are dormant. And so a lot of plants got missed, I'm sure. And I just scanned the area and found one of the species that was not recorded in it was missing a species there, a dominant species in the area that's being impacted. The seeds can be saved for conservation purposes if we can identify these items, these species.
Okay, a couple things. I was a former county planning board member, and not in this state, elsewhere. And I've been hearing on social media that this is a permitted use, and therefore, if we don't approve it, we're going to get sued. I just believe that is fact. I don't know why, but I did. And I finally decided yesterday to look that up and verify that, and almost fainted. I have never called this a warehouse because it's not a warehouse. What this is it's a logistical terminal. So I assumed that the planning board and the Unified Development Ordinances under permitted land uses would list a terminal as well as a warehouse, and that those two things would be allowed, and this could happen there. Well, to my surprise, there's no terminal classification in Upland, and the code says that anything that's not listed is strictly prohibited. This thing couldn't even be approved with a special use permit or a variance. Upon discovering this, I started researching Chino, where they have an Amazon, Fontana, to see if anywhere else has put this in with a simple warehouse classification, and of course they haven't. I can't even believe I'm the only one that's noticed this when we have a city planner and other people that are supposed to be doing this. But I had to get a planner's dictionary, which was generated by Galveston, Texas. They took terms from multiple states, cities, and counties all over the country to define every term in the natural world for everything that we use. So first of all, let's get familiar with what motor freight is. Motor freight consists of various types of good which are moved via trucks and not air or rail. What this needs to be is a terminal. Every single terminal definition in a planner's dictionary would fit this to an absolute T, and is an absolute must. A transportation facility in which quantities of goods or cargo are stored without undergoing any manufacturer process, transferred to other carriers, or stored outdoors in order to transfer them to other locations. I love this one. A facility for the receipt, transfer, short-term storage, and dispatching of goods transported by trucks. Included in these uses would be types of express mail service and packaging distribution facilities, including such facilities operated by the post office. If the post office and FedEx and UPS and Airborne Express or DHL, whatever's still out there, if they're all considered a trucking terminal, so is this. This is equivalent to, say, a warehouse coming in here saying they're going to do a parts warehouse, and then they pave a 30-acre parking lot, all of a sudden it becomes a truck stop. This is what is about to happen here. You know there's 1,100 delivery vans plus, 25 trucks? Anything over 5 trucks is considered a terminal. So you have a fiduciary duty not to approve this because this is not permitted in the land use code. Thank you.
Members and members of the public. My name is Brenda Sarathi. I'm a professor of environmental analysis, and I have a PhD in environmental science and policy from the University of California, Berkeley. I thank you all for this opportunity to learn more about the project. I am looking forward to that. There's thousands of pages of documents for planning commissioners, city councilors to pour through, much of it very technical, including technical appendices. So a couple of things that I do want to raise my concern about, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about, and I will be submitting comments, and I encourage everyone else to do so by January 21st, so it's in the documentary record. First has to do with the Tier 3 thresholds in the greenhouse gas appendix. Now, because Upland is the lead agency on this, you actually have discretionary authority in relation to what threshold you use for greenhouse gas emissions. And I was quite surprised to see that you chose the industrial threshold for a stationary source, which is a heavy industry threshold of about 10,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Whereas if you chose the commercial/retail threshold, that's around 3,000 to 3,500 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year. Elsewhere in the report, you actually categorize the project, and there's a lot of comparisons to retail. And so I'm quite surprised that the city has used a higher bar in characterizing this project as industry. And I did talk to South Coast AQMD about this. They thought it was quite a fair point and strongly encouraged me to put it into MND commentary. So I asked you please to look at that and justify why you've categorized it with a higher threshold. The second point has to do with the other professor's point on air quality emissions and traffic studies, and you use level of service measures, and you might want to consider vehicle miles traveled. It's a common measure used in a lot of metropolitan areas, so it is ground tested, and that might give you more accurate numbers. I'm deeply concerned about traffic congestion. It's not simply about widening roads, but we're talking about air quality, idling. What does that mean sort of at the much more localized impact? This is a singularly unique type of facility. You can't simply compare it to a Lowe's or a Home Depot retail versus warehouse. This is a semi-logistical hub, and so it is incumbent upon you perhaps to go look at facilities such as Chino and elsewhere. There is the whole ITE study, Institution of Transportation Engineers. This is a recent development in the area. They're trying to figure out how to quantify high-cube warehouse projects. There's even different categories for what high-cube warehouses qualify as, parcel hub, etc. So there's a lot there. Please, I ask for an EIR. Thank you.
I have reviewed much of the initial study, but first I have a master's in atmospheric chemistry and environmental science. I work at the California Air Resources Board evaluating diesel emissions, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, a mechanical engineer, my focus is engine studies. I have reviewed much, and I also have a background in CEQA, California Environmental Protection Act. And I'm passionate about the things that I commit to. I'm committed to having a thorough process so far as CEQA and the environmental review here, and that it be at the best engineering practice level. Again, I have reviewed much of the initial study. I am against this proposed project going forward without an environmental impact report. I find that this initial study has flawed methodology, uses outdated software, in some instances by 20 years. Indicated conclusions were based on an analysis and results not well defined. Inputs to models were not defined. Analysis software programs were not disclosed, and if they were, the rev date and the revision number was not disclosed. Most raw data output was not included. That was unexpected. In my opinion, as an environmental engineer, this initial study does not meet standard engineering best practices, which also leads me to question whether or not it was peer-reviewed, which is part of due diligence by city planning staff. For example, on the hydrology calculations, we already know this project is 50.25 acres. However, the proposed site only includes hydrology calculations for 48 acres. What happened to the other 2 acres? I don't know. That should have been caught in a peer review. Another example, on the hydrology calculation and analysis program done in May of 2018 on the existing site, a lot of these studies is existing versus the proposed. On the existing site, they used a software program with a revision date of 2016 and a version date of 23. It was good data. It was good output. And then I compared that to the proposed. The proposed used version 8, dated 1999. Dated 1999. As a reg writer, I write specifications, And what I am acutely aware of is that going from a 2016 version, which is still the most current, to a 1999, you missed 20 years, over 20 years of regulatory updates, improved mathematical modeling, improved mathematical relationships. I ask that you direct staff to conduct the necessary actions to develop an environmental impact report. Furthermore, it needs to be peer-reviewed, and that reviewer disclosed. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, good evening, folks. Thank you for hosting this again. Just very quick, we're here on a second-time basis. First-time basis, people behind us thought they were very confident in demonstrating their project. I think they were wrong. What's happened since? Actually, a few things happened since we kind of discovered that very little financial benefit was going to be going to Upland. So they decided to start throwing money around and try to get a favorable view of the project. But it struck me that we still do not know who the lease person or the lease company that will be going in there. I think that's very, very wrong to now tell the city who is going to be leasing 55 acres of property on our west end when there's houses around there. And they still refuse, to this date, to tell us who it is. We all have an idea at this point. But the main point I wanted to make was the traffic study. Who in this room believes that there is zero impact on this traffic study? That's very evident, And I'd like to know if our police department was involved in this study, since they hold the statistics on traffic enforcement, on traffic citations, traffic collisions. Were they involved? I think collaboration between the police department and the developer is warranted at this point. Give our chiefs we hold our chief in high regard in this community, so he's a voice that most of us will probably listen to. If he tells us it's going to be okay, we're probably going to be okay. So why not involve our police chief? So going back to the developer again, I understand money going through the schools and money's going for road repairs finally, because I believe they initially said they were not going to give us road repairs. Why in the world is our Upland Chamber receiving $50,000 from the developer when they should be leading the front against this project, because they're going to kill every single small business in this town? So that answer needs to be answered. Why is our chamber involved in this? Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Planning Commission. Somebody mentioned 1,100 vans. Going out, coming back, I don't know how many times a day, but going out and coming back is 2,200 trips. If they come back a couple times, 3,300, 4,400. We don't need this kind of traffic running through here. We've already got 2-hour delivery from Amazon. Why do we need it here to be supporting other cities when we don't make any local sales tax off it? It is ridiculous. And I'd also like to point out the zoning issue. Industrial zoning does not state anywhere anything about having a distribution hub or a terminal facility in it, nor does the commercial zoning for Upland. All of these other cities mentioned have it, which leads me to believe that our Planning Commission has not been doing a proper job in updating our codes, updating our general plan. This is why we need to have term limits, and we need to have a fresh perspective in here and to stay on top of this. I don't see any benefit from something that's not zoned properly, that's going to overburden our roads. You put apartments on Central Avenue, and now you want to run semis right by them. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You're going to be crossing Foothill. This isn't what we need. Show me an Amazon distribution center anywhere on Foothill Boulevard. You won't find one, and there's a reason for it. It's not the proper place to be in our commercial corridor. We need to have proper studies, and we need to have a planning commission that's willing to represent us. It is not about progress. It is not about the best wishes of the community. It's the best use of that land. Is this really the best use of that land? No local tax, all of these environmental issues, and more traffic than I even care to try to imagine per day. It's not a good idea. Thank you for your time.
Reference kind of the same nature of conversations everyone's been kind of already airing is the traffic and some of the congestion and the traffic that's being projected for the project. It looks like from the initial study from reference, I have a map here. And from the project, obviously the 13th Street, it looks to see the access area for the vans. That's possibly employees and distribution for the vans. It looks like it's 2,400 possibly vans that are going to be participating in the delivery. And from reference from some of the initial study, it looks like there's an AM shift. Obviously, it's 2,400. That'd be 600 divided by 4. A concentration of an AM shift, a PM shift of 600. The difference being 1,200. With that amount of traffic being congested in the streets, there would be definitely some, I think, initial studies of how congested some of the streetlights would be, but in the initial study, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of data within those studies. Like some of the street lights, it shows reference of barely being a couple seconds later in wait times in those perimeters. Such as, the main cross streets of whenever traffic is going to be compiling from the warehouse. Isn't there a way that maybe Bridgepoint could possibly narrow in some other studies, possibly from other facilities, possibly like in Chino, Fontana, or even in Redlands, to see exactly what's their capability of facility-wise to, how it impacts some of the streets? Just like someone had mentioned before, with some of the data that's available to the police department, I think there's studies of an 85th percentile traffic collision report. Data's already there. There's a linear projection, I think, on the study in the initial where it shows in 2040 what the wait times would be. What would be the cap of some of the traffic of this growth from the warehouse? We have 2,400 vans operating. If it's approved, 5 years from now, is that going to double? Is that going to be a triple? Is it going to be a 20% increase? I think those are some questions that all of us would like to know, and that could be a little more clarity, I think, for all us to understand. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Libby Hummel, and I'm a 37-year resident of Upland. I am extremely opposed to the Bridges Development Project in Upland. It is not a proper location for an Amazon fulfillment center due to its location in a residential area. I know you say it isn't, but it is. We also have emergency services directly across the street from the proposed location, with a fire department on Benson and a police department on 13th Street. We all know that time is of the essence in a life and death situation. Since this is a residential area, our quality of life will be affected by traffic, noise, and pollution. This will come from trucks, vans, autos, airplanes, and in the future, drones with their buzzing noise. Furthermore, our property will depreciate along with our health. I have a suspicion that our voting rights were taken away unconstitutionally, I believe, 2 years ago in District 1, about the time this was started. To date, we still don't have any representation on the council. The least the city and its representatives can do is provide a proper environmental impact report from someone other than a Bridges cohort. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Charlene Contreras, and I'm a resident on 16th and Benson. I'm also environmental health specialist with the LA County Department of Public Health, so fully certified and qualified to speak on health impacts of this project. What I wanted to bring to your attention was, while Bridge did identify a good buffer around for noise, I want to speak on the noise. A buffer around the project site. Their project does also include the fleet. And so the fleet and the routes that are traveled on, there is not a good buffer between the routes and the residential zones that are along those routes. As you've heard from other people before me, the traffic study seems to be flawed, and it's the basis for which the noise, the air, and the greenhouse gas models were developed as well. So if you have the foundation data not correct, then the rest of the other studies are not going to be correct as well. And just so you know, looking at the noise study, they did capture actual noise measurements, but only 4 of them. And the 2 areas where one was modeled and one was actual was a 10 decibel difference. And so while that may not mean anything, CEQA says if there's a significant impact above 5 decibels, then that is a significant impact. So the noise study did say no significant impact. However, when we look at the model and we look at the actual, there is a 10 decibel difference. So I just want further evaluation into that. In addition, the nighttime noise was not captured. And so if it's a 24/7 operation, then the nighttime noise at the residential area should be captured. Also, inside the homes, I know the city of Upland does have strict code enforcement on noise. And so there's laws in there that say the residential area has to be at 45. And so it's very important that the model be taken at the residential area. Because noise is a significant health impact, especially when you're trying to sleep and you hear horns and you hear all of this noise. So lastly, what I just wanted to say is I want to urge you to go through with the full EIR, because if we can't identify the impacts, then we never get the opportunity to mitigate them. And then we just have to live with them. And so that's why I'm here, to just help you in any way, because I think we all need to make informed decisions. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Planning Commission. Carlos Garcia, almost a 4-year resident here in Upland, and also a proud director of the Upland Coalition of Concerned Citizens. As I was coming in, I already had notes prepared for this, but I was handed an updated flyer that we're up to about $10 million on what they're proposing to help out. Two of the items that are on this specifically is, I'd like to know is who was invited or who allocated this particular money specifically for schools. We already covered the chamber and some of the other aspects of it too. I came from education. $100,000 for a school does nothing. Doesn't even pay half of a salary of a teacher for the most part, including benefits and all that. Part of what we really need to look at is the environment. It's already been talked about. How is this going to create long-term revenue? $10 million? Are we talking about yearly for the 50-year lease? Okay, $10 million is nothing. Make it up $15 million, it's nothing. By the time it hits that bank, it's already going to be spent. Are we talking about how is that going to bring down our retirement funding that we already owe? It's not going to do anything for it, right? So what Ms. James also said about not keeping the door open, I agree with her on that. If we're going to negotiate, let's negotiate for the better of Upland. We keep crying that we don't have money, we don't have money, we don't have money. And the other thing that I'm also hearing is that we're afraid of getting sued. Well, we pay our attorney almost $500,000 to cover us, right? So why not put that to work? Thank you.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Okay, thank you. I had an opportunity to attend a human trafficking conference this week, past Saturday. So what I'm not hearing being said tonight is what's going to come in on the trucks and vans. A speaker asked the question, where does this kind of activity take place? People responded, Disneyland, the Rose Parade, any type of a big event. Why? Around Disneyland, the area around it, the traffic. We have people coming from other states and other countries. So then she asked, let's bring it closer to home. Where else do you think bad things happen? Nobody responded. She said, think about this. High-density housing and traffic, where you have a lot of big vehicles, no matter what size. What that welcomes in is prostitution and human trafficking. drug cartels. On this flyer that there was a young man handing out as you came in was a dollar amount that is supposed to go to our Upland Police Department. That dollar amount needs to be increased to 5 times that amount. The prostitution, child trafficking, the fight against the drug cartels, they're going to outnumber our police department just like that. What's down the street from this location? The nude, dancing, whatever you want to call it. That's a perfect prime location for such activity. Today in the news, there was talk of the city of Pomona dedicating 2 full-time officers to Holt Boulevard. Why? To combat prostitution and human trafficking. The age for a human trafficking starts at the age of 12. This human is sold to different gangs throughout our region. Drugs are a one-time hit. It comes and goes. But a 12-year-old human can be sold and resold and resold until they can no longer perform. Then they're kicked to the side of the road or they're killed. Is that what each and every one of you wants to bring to this community? If so, know that you own this, okay?
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Stone. My name is Alonzo Zaldivar. I'm a 20-year resident here at Upland and currently a senior at the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business. I'm excited to be here tonight to voice my opinion in strong disagreement on the desired permission Amazon is currently trying to gain in an effort to place a 5-acre distribution plant in a city that I grew up. 50, I'm sorry, I said 50. Makes it even worse. In a city that I grew up never seeing as a commercial hub. I'd like to begin to remind the council members that this decision that lies before them is very important. It should be taken with an infinite mindset and not so much a finite one. And I can imagine how easy it is for us to get caught up in the glamour that Amazon has promised regarding jobs, increasing consumer spending, and especially the use to unused land that kind of has created a sore as I'm driving down Foothill. But according to Amazon's 2018 income statement, they've spent roughly $28 billion in research and development, and throughout the years it's grown enormously. Just year over year, 27.48%, and from 2016, 79.28%. Now, what this means is, although they do promise to provide us jobs in this distribution plant that I'm sure will provide many, I think it's very short term. And as many people here spoke about the change that we've seen before us, and it's rapid. And before we know it, we're going to have an empty, completely autonomous distribution plant that provides no benefit to our city. You know, as an avid businessman, this is a really good model. I'm not going to lie to you. But as a citizen of a city that I truly love, I really don't see it benefiting us in the future. So unless Amazon is fully committed to increasing the quality of life of our great city, whether that be creating and supporting a community fund that improves our roads and schools, will I be against this motion? And until that is all I got. Thank you so much. And yeah, I love Upland. I really do.
Next.
Yes, I'm Marjorie Musser-Michaels, and my family's been here almost 100 years. And so I remember when the airport came in. And, you know, it's significant. I haven't heard anybody talk about the fact that Amazon always locates near airports. They're trying to locate over at Norton, where the largest plutonium pit probably in the world is over there. And, you know, they're going to subject people to it. But it is inconceivable to me that Amazon, who's touted this as a prototype, is not going to use drones and other means to use that airport to bring in goods and so forth, too. And we haven't talked about how much that's going to increase, you know, the burden on our city. And then I have to second what Ms. Terry said about the human trafficking. Now, we all remember when Stephen Dunn left here as the city manager and got taken in by Bob Cable over there, and then got his campaign for city council supported by Welke, the big marijuana guy who was trying to push in all the marijuana and who owns all the TNA outfits that are right next door to this airport. At the time when we know the Sinaloa, gang from Mexico is bringing in pot and other stuff to the airport, for distribution through Welke's outfits and so forth, while the city is spending $1 million to fight that one guy who was trying to get it. I mean, we have a history here, right? And we're putting this gateway of our city, we're going to put an Amazon distribution center right next door to the TNA. I know that's in the county, and you can't control it, but we don't know what all is going to be coming in and distributed at our front door, okay? Front door from Claremont. They're not asking to go to Claremont. They're asking to come to Upland, the gracious city, because maybe they just feel like you guys will be scared. I have a feeling Mr. Zuniga has been fed a line that this is zoned for this, and so you don't have any right to do this, and they might sue us, and that would be horrible. Well, we know how Amazon treats people. We know how they spent over $1 million to get rid of a city councilwoman in Seattle who was trying to help to get the largest corporations in the world. We know Jeff Bezos is the richest guy in the world, okay, to try to get them and Starbucks and Boeing, to kick in some money to get rid of the homeless. They fought that tooth and nail, and Amazon spent $1 million to get rid of that one councilwoman. And they lost, okay? They lost, because the people knew better. And you got a lot of people out here tonight, and you need to listen to them. And we need to go for an EIR, okay? And they say, oh, we don't have time. We have to get this in by next August, or else it just won't work. And Amazon needs to step up to the plate. Okay, they won't even come and sign the contracts that you're going to try to impose them.
Thank
and who's
you,
gonna
Marjorie.
monitor
Your
them?
time is up. Thank you.